It was one of those dusty Texas evenings when the wind blew hot and dry, carrying the scent of sunburnt earth and old secrets. The sun was sliding down the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire and blood. Tom Walker, a quiet cowboy with more scars than smiles, was riding home after a long day fixing fences near the canyon. His horse, Rusty, moved slow, tired but steady. The land was silent except for the sound of wind and hooves, until something strange cut through that quiet. It wasn't a coyote, nor the wind. It was softer. A sound that didn't belong in the wild, a tiny, broken whimper. Tom froze. He pulled on the reins, listening hard. There it was again, faint but real, a baby's cry. He frowned, heart thumping. Out here, miles from town, there shouldn't be a baby. Maybe he imagined it. But then came another sound, clearer this time, a little voice, trembling, almost like a whisper, "Mama." That was enough. Tom swung off his horse, boots kicking dust as he moved toward the sound. The cry came from near a cluster of rocks by the old creek bed, half hidden by tall grass. He knelt and pushed some weeds aside, and there it was. A sack. An old burlap sack tied with rough rope. And it was moving. Good Lord, he muttered, his hands shaking as he untied the knot. Inside, wrapped in a torn blanket, was a baby, tiny, pale, covered in dirt but still breathing. The little thing blinked up at him, eyes wet, cheeks streaked with tears. She let out another weak sound, "Mama." Tom's chest tightened. Whoever left her here hadn't just abandoned her, they meant for her to die. He scooped the baby into his arms, wrapping her tighter in the blanket. She was cold, too cold. He looked around, half expecting to see someone watching, but the plains were empty. Just wind, dust, and silence. "All right, little one," he said softly, his rough voice trembling, "you're safe now." He climbed onto Rusty, holding her close, and rode fast toward his cabin on the edge of town. By the time he got there, the stars were out, and the baby had stopped crying, her tiny face pressed against his chest. He lit the fire, warmed some milk, and fed her drop by drop using a clean rag. She drank slowly, eyes fluttering like a tired bird. When she finally slept, Tom sat there just watching her. Something inside him stirred, something he hadn't felt in years. He used to have a family once. A wife named Clara and a baby boy, Jacob. Both gone now, lost to fever 3 winters back. He'd buried them under the old oak and hadn't smiled since. He'd shut the world out. But now, looking at this little stranger, he felt something flicker again, hope, maybe. Morning came bright and cold. Tom saddled up and headed into town, the baby wrapped in a blanket. He stopped at the doctor's place first. "Doc, I found her out by the creek," Tom said, laying the baby gently on the table. "Someone left her to die." The doctor examined her, eyes darkening. "She's lucky you found her. A few more hours, and she'd be gone. Poor little angel." Word spread fast. By noon, folks in town were whispering about the cowboy who found a baby in a sack. Some offered pity, others suspicion. "Probably some outlaw's kid," said one man outside the saloon. "Best hand her to the sheriff." Tom heard him but didn't say anything. He wasn't about to hand her to anyone. The sheriff, old Joe McGraw, came by that evening anyway. "Tom," he said kindly, "we'll try to find who did this. But you know the law, can't just keep her." Tom nodded but didn't promise anything. He knew how the world worked. Babies like her, with no name and no family, often ended up in some orphanage miles away. He couldn't let that happen. That night, as the wind howled outside, Tom sat by the fire holding her close. She opened her eyes and looked up at him, her tiny hand grabbing his finger. He smiled for the first time in years. "I guess you ain't got nobody," he whispered, "and I ain't got nobody either. Maybe we can fix that." Days turned to weeks. The baby got stronger. Tom started calling her Lily, because she reminded him of the wildflowers that grew near the river, fragile but tough enough to bloom in hard soil. He built a cradle out of pine wood and sang her to sleep every night in his low, rough voice. The neighbors said he'd gone soft, but he didn't care. Lily brought life back into that old cabin, laughter, warmth, and a reason to wake up. But trouble came one cold morning. 2 strangers rode into town, a man and a woman, dressed fancy, their horses too clean for folks who claimed to be poor. They went straight to the sheriff, saying their wagon had been attacked by bandits weeks ago and their baby was taken. Sheriff McGraw called Tom in. The woman gasped when she saw Lily. "That's her," she cried, reaching out. Tom felt his heart drop. "You sure?" he asked quietly. The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. "She's ours. Please, we thought she was dead." Tom wanted to believe her, but something didn't sit right. The man barely looked at the baby. His eyes were cold, restless. When he spoke, his voice was too smooth. We appreciate you finding her, mister. We'll take her now. The sheriff looked uneasy. They got papers, he said softly. Tom looked at Lily, then back at them. Those papers could be faked. That baby was left in a sack to die. What kind of parents do that? The man glared. You calling us liars? If the boot fits, Tom said, his hand resting on his belt where his pistol hung. The sheriff stepped between them. All right, enough. Tom, I'll do some checking. Nobody's taking the baby till I'm sure. That night, Tom barely slept. His gut told him the truth, these people weren't Lily's parents. They wanted her for some reason, maybe money or worse. At dawn, he packed a small bag, wrapped Lily in a blanket, and saddled Rusty. The sheriff might not understand, but Tom wasn't about to risk losing her. He rode out of town before sunrise, heading for the mountains. For days they traveled, through cold nights and endless plains. He fed her, sang to her, told her stories about stars and rivers. It was hard, but he didn't care. She was his daughter now, in every way that mattered. One evening, they camped by a lake. The sky was full of fireflies, and Lily giggled for the first time. Tom laughed too, a sound that startled even him. But the peace didn't last. The two strangers found them 3 days later, leading a group of men with guns. Turns out, they weren't parents at all. They were traffickers, selling children to rich families back east. Tom fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Bullets tore through the trees. He got hit once in the shoulder but kept firing. When it was over, 3 men lay dead, and the rest ran. The sheriff arrived not long after with a posse, he'd followed their trail. When he saw the scene, he knew everything. He helped Tom up, looking at the baby in his arms. You did right, Tom, the sheriff said. She's safe now. Months later, the law cleared everything. The couple was exposed, and Tom was allowed to adopt Lily legally. Years passed. The cabin became a home again, filled with laughter and sunlight. Lily grew up strong and bright, always calling him, Papa. Sometimes, when the wind blew through the canyon, Tom would remember that night, the sack, the cry, the voice saying, Mama. He'd hold Lily close and whisper, you weren't meant to die out there. You were meant to find me. And deep down, he knew, maybe saving her wasn't the only miracle that night. Maybe, in a quiet, dusty corner of the world, she had saved him too.